ADHD and defense mechanism. I used to think that defense mechanisms were a bad thing. I thought it meant being defensive, mentally unhealthy, and damaging to relationships. How could I possibly control the unconscious working of my defense mechanism? My upbringing was so different from that of most people, and it resulted in a defense mechanisms that caused problems in my relationships. My defense mechanisms included avoidance, denial, and humor, laughs, among the others. And I hated how those prevent me from getting along with people and cause misunderstandings. I also resented myself for relying on defense mechanisms that were rooted in the mistakes of my troubled childhood and didn't really protect me. During my consultation with a specialist, I shared my story of how I unknowingly used defense mechanisms which caused misunderstandings and hurt feelings in my relationships. The specialist's response was somewhat shocking and challenged my preconceptions. He said, "Your defense mechanisms protected you, so don't worry too much about other people's reaction or misunderstandings." He explained that my defense mechanisms were a way of protecting myself, and that is a good thing. That was a good thing. However, I find it difficult to prioritize myself and my needs without feeling guilty, possibly because it's something I've struggled with since childhood. When I would raise concerns about my parents' behavior, they would accuse of me being selfish and only thinking about myself. They prioritized their own interests while neglecting and sacrificing me, and our home life was like hell. Can I raise objection when others treat me disrespectfully without me respecting myself? Learned helplessness has made me unable to protect myself. That's why I hated my parents and myself. They couldn't protect me, despite working hard to acquire qualifications, intelligence, and knowledge. I had a ruined work life due to my ADHD disposition, which caused me to speak inappropriately out of anxiety and fear resulting from a harsh childhood. Why did I go into that company to see what good it would do? I hated myself for going in and out, exhausting myself and not protecting myself. Why did I keep trying and making my already shattered heart even harder? I hated myself. However, I needed that job. I had to make a living and learn the skills and experience there to establish my own foundation. In my 20s, I was too young and inexperienced to do it on my own, but as I watched a society operates until 30s, I realized I needed opportunities to learn various knowledge, wisdom, and skills to figure out what worked best for me. In the end, it was a challenging and difficult process that required me to endure and persevere, but I overcame it because I needed to protect myself. Perhaps that was also my defense mechanism. The company was full of courage and full of people, and I wasn't the only one, so there was no reason for me to hate myself specifically. It's okay not to have it all together. I have a strong desire to be loved and appropriated. This desire for love and attention may have become an exception, and I may have paid too much attention to approval and reactions of others. Older adults tend to find me very attractive, but in the competitive and defensive environment of the workplace, I was unable to honest or have a flexibility to recognize that others may have different perspectives and experience from mine. I have had that way, and that was the life I was allowed and afforded. It was my fault, and I recognized the unfairness of the situation and did my best within those constraints. Although my defensive attitude may have seemed selfish and made me appear ignorant of other feelings, and even though it may have resulted in being disliked, having a poor reputation, and being ostracized within the organization, it was all that was allowed to me in the world. Everyone needs to go to bed and cover themselves with a blanket, but our blankets are too short. I am intellectually mature and able to make a good decision in certain aspects, but my husband is not as capable as I am. One corner of my blanket is longer than the other, and I can share the longer side with my husband. He is a kind-hearted person who understands and cares for the other feelings, which is something that I lack in my shorter side of the blanket. My husband shares his love by covering me with his longer side. We are a good match. If we both had the same length on our shorter side and longer side of the blanket, we would have been unhappy, constantly blaming each other for being insufficient. In the world I live in now, there are no aggressive situations that require my defense mechanism to kick in. As a living being in this world, I only have my husband and two beloved cats. They don't pose a threat to me. My defense mechanism is slowly crumbling away. However, when I meet people, I find myself getting extremely tense, awkward, and unable to endure the uncomfortable atmosphere, resulting in me saying meaningless things. It's unbelievable that I, who am intellectually and sophisticated, have been living like a fool. Nevertheless, even those silly moments were an attempt to protect myself with my defense mechanism, which makes me realize that I have been protecting myself endlessly and loving myself. This is realization allows me to forgive myself. In this world where everyone's defense mechanism clash like swords and shields, I have consciously and unconsciously fought with all my might to protect my small but precious world. I was so preoccupied with considering other people's perspectives that I couldn't speak up for myself consciously and unconsciously activated my defense mechanism to protect myself. However, now I realize that I need to dismantle my unconscious mechanism and consciously and authentically protect myself and others. I want to live a life where we appreciate each other's strength and blessing instead of consciously competing on a small piece of land due to scarce resources. If only I had a more generous and abundant blanket in my childhood, we could have covered each other and slept comfortably.